This webinar is not about spending money. It's about how is your organization going to exceed when we get back to business as usual. And before I move on to my next slide, I love the graphic that we found for this particular slide, just because this is going to take a team effort to change the direction of the economy as it currently stands. And I love the fact that there's multiple people and that we have all recognized that the economy is at a spot where there are challenges. So let's talk about that first and foremost. I came across this IDC graph that talks about their expectations for the 2020 economy. And the blue lines there are what their expectations were prior to the pandemic. As you can see, they're all below 10% growth. A couple are above 5% growth, but for the most part, they're between 0 and 5% growth, and even devices is actually negative growth. The green, orange, and red lines are lines that are post-pandemic. The orange being the probable outcome, green being optimistic, and red being pessimistic. I actually read an article this morning. I found this last week when I was doing some reading, and this morning I read another article from IDC basically saying that optimistic has left the building. We should be looking at more of a probable, pessimistic outlook as to when the economy gets back on its feet. So I just want to kind of level set, not that we necessarily needed it, but level set you, the audience, on what the expectations are. The one thing that hits me is the uncertainty of it all. We just don't know. When you look at client devices, for example, that red line is very, very long. It could be as optimistic as -12, -13% growth, or -22% growth. That's quite a wide range. So I thought I would start with the past 3 recessions. Now, I know what we're in is not a recession, but it is an economic downturn, and no matter what label you put on it, we're in an economic challenge area time frame. So Harvard Business Review put together a study, and in 1980, 1990, slowdown, the internet bubble of 2000, after that they studied 4,700 companies. And they studied before the recession, during the recession, and the 3 years after recession. And their results were as follows. 17% of the companies didn't survive the recession. So they either went bankrupt, were acquired, or became private. So 17%. So basically almost 1 in 5. 80% of them had not yet regained their pre-recession growth rates for sales, profits 3 years after the recession. And 40 hadn't returned to their absolute pre-recession sales profits at all, which is pretty doom and gloom. 9% of their sample flourished, outperforming rivals in their industry by at least 10%. So this conversation is about being one of the 9%. How do we flourish during a down economy? How do we flourish when times are difficult? And I guarantee you we don't push the go button when the economy gets back on its feet. We have to be pushing the go button now. So the one word that I would certainly use for now is uncertainty. Uncertainty about our health, uncertainty about our family's health, our friends' health, uncertainty about the economy, the status of our business, the status of my job. These are all things that are uncertain. We don't know the timeline. We have no idea what the timeline until we're there. And all of the FUD that's going around the press just gives us no indication as to what our expectations should be. So the one thing that we should be aware of is that we have to be ready. We just don't have to be ready. We don't know when we have to be ready for. But you don't want to be in a situation where you look behind you and say, oh yeah, it should have been then. So I want to walk you through a visual. I'd like you to meet Greg. Now, Greg is a vendor. It doesn't really matter what Greg sells, but in this particular case, Greg sells security software. He could be any one of you. He is a VP of partner sales, and he reports to the Chief Revenue Officer. The company's sales plan is 30% growth for 2020. Obviously, this is going into the year pre-pandemic. The direct sales makes up 40% of the company's revenue, and channel sales makes up 60%. So Greg is a typical vendor that we may see anywhere. Greg's channel sales, well, he has 1,000 partners. And as the growth engine for this security company, his expected growth was 40% for 2020. Basically, 74% of vendors expected their revenues to increase in 2020. So Greg was not alone. Channel is the primary engine for his company's growth, and Greg has 25 account managers that manage his 1,000 partners. Now, if you quickly do the math, assuming that each partner has 25 sales reps, each account manager is responsible for about 1,800 reps, which at the best of times is a challenge to manage. The conclusion, Greg has a lot of competition. And I don't know that anyone on this call isn't in the same situation as Greg. We all have a lot of competition, and we have to be aware of that competition. But sometimes it's not the competition we expect. It's the competition we don't expect we have to be concerned about. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. Greg's performance from a channel perspective, well, Q1 was flat, but January and February were good, but March is when things started to get a little iffy. Q2 is going to be a disaster. Let's face it. No one's buying anything, and if they are buying something for security software, there's not much that can be implemented. So people aren't spending on security software, and I imagine that that's the same for many of you, unless you're an essential service. Q3 and Q4, those are uncertain, and they're uncertain for the same reasons that I explained earlier. So how is Greg going to catch up? How is Greg, our vendor, going to make his 2020 numbers? Because my numbers haven't gone down, and I don't imagine that your numbers have gone down either. And I'm not saying that Greg's going to make his numbers, but he certainly has to make a best effort to achieve those numbers. Now, I've spoken to countless companies that have a channel that's not meeting their expectations, and their first answer is add partners. I'm not saying that they shouldn't add partners, but shouldn't you add partners at the right time? How about let's getting more out of their partners, because they're not compensated for adding partners, they're compensated for adding revenue. So Greg has a challenge in front of him. And well, what's his priority? 89% of technology vendors, according to Partner Path survey, say that the channel's responsibility is to recommend and sell technology solutions. Now, to be honest with you, I'm wondering what the other 11% are thinking, but it's 89%. So I'm assuming that Greg falls into that category. Now, it seems like an obvious statement, but let's focus on the word recommend. Now, the customer journey today, as it's been defined, is approximately 65% of that buying journey has occurred before a prospect talks to a salesperson. So they've already come up with their short list, maybe even identified one or two products that they have decided that they're going to purchase. So what is the role of that salesperson? Well, the role is to be able to position, handle objections, and present the value proposition that Greg needs them to present to recommend his product. So it may seem obvious, but it's essential to Greg that the partner recommend solutions and don't just be order takers. So let's move on from Greg to Linda. Now, Linda resells Greg's product. She's the VP of sales, and her responsibility, among other things, are to resell Greg's security product. She's a mid-sized partner. Her company does approximately $200 million a year. She has 125 account executives, of which focus on different industries and geographies, 10 primary vendors and 20 secondary vendors. Now, Linda could be any one of these particular types of companies. She could be a distributor, an agent, an MSP, a value-added reseller. She could be anything. Now, 75% of partners have up to 10 primary vendors and 20 secondary vendors. And I'm going to get back to that in just a moment. So let's move on to Jack. Now, Jack is essential in all of this. Jack is the guy that owns the customer relationship. Jack is the guy that presents solutions to the customer. So Jack reports to Linda, who sells products for Greg. Jack is the guy that Greg wants to sell his products. Now, Jack's an account executive. He works for the mid-size reseller that is managed by Linda. Jack is a terrific sales rep. He's made his quota each of the last 3 years. But the one challenge Jack has, and this is not uncommon amongst the channel, is Jack doesn't make enough in his base salary to pay his day-to-day bills. So commission is extremely important to Jack. And Jack's not making any commission. Jack's last commission paycheck occurred in March. He'll get a small one in April, but he started off the year like he started off the last 3 years, 110%, 118% January, February. But he felt the same thing that Greg felt, and that was March was a slippery slope into a very disappointing Q2. We can see Jack's expectation is that April, May, and June are going to be very disappointing, with uncertainty around July, August, and the balance of the year. But like I said, Jack needs to make commissions in order to survive. Make his mortgage payment, make his car payment, pay for his kids' tuition. Whatever it is, Jack has to still make those payments. So how's Jack going to catch up? Jack has the exact same problem as Greg. Okay, first quarter, brutal second quarter. He's got to find a way to make up for it in the third and fourth quarter, maybe not even the third quarter. Maybe the fourth quarter is where he has to make it up. So what's he going to do that's going to help him make up that lost ground? Is Jack going to sell Greg's product or your product? Or is he going to sell someone else's product? The fact of the matter is, Jack has the opportunity to be prepared to sell any product that he chooses. But is he going to sell your product? Why is he going to sell your product? Because it's a good product? I've had a lot of conversations in my 3 years at ChannelAssist with senior people of sales forces. And when asking them the question, why should someone sell your product? The first answer for 95% of them is, well, it's a great product. Well, that's terrific, except everybody has great products. And Jack expects to sell a good product to his customer. But the challenge is which product? The fact is that Jack sells and has the opportunity to sell up to 30 products. And all of those are good products. The question has to be, what's in it for Jack? I mean, when these senior salespeople try to figure out or communicate why Jack should sell the product, he's telling them why customers should buy the product because they have good products. But really what they should be figuring out is what's in it for Jack. And let's face it, we've all been around the block. And we all like to think that we're somewhat holistic in our approach, that we think about our company first and we think about our family first. But at the end of the day, we think about ourselves first. We think about what's the impact to me. Whenever we make any decision is what's good for the greater good, but how is it going to affect me? Well, Jack thinks the same way that we think and what's in it for him. So when you look at all of these logos, how does your logo fit in here? Because that's what Jack has the opportunity to sell. And every one of these companies offers a very good product, the hot product of the day. So Chuck Robbins had an interesting quote. Never has technology been more important to our customers, and never have they cared less about the technology. The way I interpret that is, fix my problem using technology rather than people, but I really don't care what logo is on the box or what the brand is of the software. Just, I want to make sure that you're fixing my product. And that's how I've always approached sales. I've always approached sales with, as long as you sell a good product that meets the needs of your client, they will continue to come back. But the brand's not important. So what is Jack looking for from a vendor? Well, let's be obvious. He's looking for more money, first and foremost. Jack has to catch up. He has to find a way to catch up on the Q2 that hasn't met his financial needs. Yes, he wants to sell a good product, but he's assuming that all the products he has to sell are good products. He needs more confidence, not just in your product, but more confidence. He needs to understand how to sell your product. He needs sales product training, not just product training. He doesn't need to know what the features and benefits are. He needs to understand what's the value proposition, how to handle objections, how to identify an opportunity. Without that, he's not selling your product. These will lead to shorter sales cycles and more opportunities. I've never seen a successful salesperson that lacks confidence. That's key to them selling your product. So how are you going to instill that? We'll talk about that in a moment. Communication. Having sold for 35 years, the one thing that always amazed me is the lack of communication. Salespeople have this wealth of information about the customers they're selling to, and no one really asks them anything about it. So what you need to do is start more effectively communicating with your clients. Well, when you look at Greg, the vendor, Greg has one account manager for every 1,800 sales reps. Think sending him the occasional email is proper communication. Is that true engagement? You need to more effectively communicate with them. You need to come up with ways to understand what's going on in the marketplace. Use contests, polling, email, social media, portals to figure out the most appropriate way to communicate with every individual. And then finally, you have to offer an easy solution, an easy way to work with the sales reps. So what should Greg do? Now that he knows what the channel sales rep's looking for, what should he do about it? Well, this is the channel long sale. Now, if you haven't seen it, well, now is the first time. And it applies to every single sales channel on the planet. No one is immune from this. So basically what this says is that most companies, all companies, drive most of their revenue from a very small number of their channel reps or their partners. On average, it's 5%. 5% of your channel partners drive the majority of your revenue. 95% are not. Now, that doesn't mean that 95% are not good channel partners. It just means they're not good for you. They may be doing great selling other people's products. So Greg has to figure out, where should I spend my time? Should I spend my time on the people that are selling well for me or the people that are not? Or both? Well, up to now, I haven't been able to spend the time that people are not performing for me. So what do I do about that? Well, first and foremost, I say focus on channel reps. Now, a good part of my job is to read. And I read all kinds of information talking about how companies should focus on the channel. And everything is focused on the partner. Well, which is great, and they have to focus on the partner, but no one speaks about the channel sales rep. They're the ones that own the customer. They're the ones that have the day-to-day conversation with the customer. And while a partner may have a strategy on how to go out after a market, it's the sales reps that fine-tune that strategy and execute that strategy. Why are they not being focused on when it comes to engagement? So first and foremost, what Greg has to do as the vendor is Greg has to communicate his plan and reinforce it on a regular basis. Get in front of them. Let them know that they're important to them and that they're a key part of them executing on their plan. They have to show that they're focused on engaging them. And engaging means different things to different people. But to me, engagement is about someone making a sale of a product and telling someone else that they made a sale of that product. Now they're engaged. They want to find a way to communicate more effectively using the portal. Now I know what you're all saying. You're saying, oh, we've got a wonderful partner portal. Check out the usage of that partner portal. How often are partner sales reps going to visit your portal? If it's like most portals, it's full of training courses, but they need direction. They need to know what works best for them because you're one of 30 customers or partners, sorry, vendors that have a partner portal they should be visiting. Come out with a survey or a poll, get their temperature, get their feedback, and incent them to do so because no one will take a survey unless there's something in it for them. We ran a survey with a client in 2018. It was a very successful survey, and we incented them to take it. We paid them maybe $10, $15, not a lot, but people would take it because they had a few minutes and they'd take the survey. In 2019, we offered an additional incentive, and the additional incentive, when it turns out, was worth nothing. They were points, but those points led to potentially a trip, but for most people, they were worth nothing. We saw a 65% uptick in participation in the survey. You don't need to spend a lot to do this, but what you need to do is spend smart. Finally, he has to use the timing of where we are to his advantage. Don't wait until it's the economy back to normal before you do anything. I have a son that just started working for a channel company back in August, and he sits at home and spends 3 to 4 hours calling people, getting very, very little traction, and the rest he spends training and planning. So if you're not in his mind space, he's not thinking about you. He's not positioning you, and he's not gaining more confidence about you. And then finally, you have to continue to communicate over and over and over again. Confidence and enthusiasm are the greatest sales producers in any kind of economy. O.B. Smith. Never seen a salesperson that's not confident when they sell, that's successful. Next, you have to consider training. I know what you're saying, and we have this partner portal, and it's got all the training they need, but you need to give them a reason to take your training. Start now while they have time in their hands. They're building a pipeline, and you're not a part of it. Or if you are, you're an afterthought. The fact is that 95% need to know that you're serious about them training and what they should be training on. And you need to start now. Now, I'm going to walk you through a quick case study here. This is where a client of ours, a global client, targeted their training. And their goal was to motivate sales reps to sell their products through education. And they empowered their business units to lead their channel engagement programs. So the solution was to launch a series of incentive training programs to motivate and engage sales reps. They received dollars when they took the training. But the cool part of this is that they were incented to take the training, let's say $100. If they sold product during that same quarter, they got $100. But because it was during the same quarters, they got another bonus $100. If they sold product in the second quarter, they just got the same old $100. But the point of it was to not have them take the training so that they just passed the course and then they forgot about it the next day. The point of this training was so they could actually use it in selling, and then they could repeat it over and over again. We also included a gamification component to make it fun so that people wanted to take the training and made money and talked about it with their peers. The results, 339% increase in new revenue. Now, I know what you're saying. Well, this was during a regular economy. I don't know what these results would be like when the pandemic ends, but I'll tell you this. This is the kind of thing that gives you a leap ahead of your competition. This is what engages people. We know it's worked. The challenge is what's the impact going to be? And nothing is certain. Remember what I put on that slide with the pandemic, uncertainty. But what we do know is that this is a game changer. This is what will differentiate you. The deal size grew by 18%, and what I truly loved about this is 336% more people engaged in the program. Without incentives, the types of things that keep key community stakeholders involved, you may have a change, but it'll be gradual. It may take years to accomplish what you could have done in a much shorter period of time. Now, Dr. Mary Lippett, she created the complex change model. I used to sell change management back in the day. There are 5 components to complex change, and incentives are one of them. And without incentives, they're going to ask the question, what's in it for me? So what about incentives? Well, design a plan. People think incentives, they think spiff. Well, don't think spiff. Spiff is a blanket solution to, I'm going to give you a dollar figure for everything I sell. Make it focused. Drive behavior. When you spiff everything, you're not driving behavior. You're just telling someone, look at my products. What you need to do is build alignment. Identify and work with the channel to figure out which actions they should focus on to drive specific business that you're focused on. Create training behaviors, focus on communication, drive new logos, renewals, deal registration. These are all ways to incent and drive activities. And communicate the plan with the reps. Over-communicate. Get their attention, keep them excited, show that you're committed. If you're not a big brand, then you're going to really have to show them that this is not a one-time thing. You're going to have to communicate the plan so they understand that this is a long-term opportunity for them. Otherwise, they'll look at it and then move on to something that's more long-term. And they need to see return. So when I talk about report, I'm talking about access to information. Show leaderboards. Get people excited by showing case studies of what success looks like. Give them access anytime, any place, wherever they want it. And target promotions. Focus on areas of weakness. Combine initiatives, the training combined with selling. Include gamification and segment to different audiences. Some people are very good at selling some things. Focus on them for specific areas. But for those that aren't selling anything at all, come up with a different promotion for them. Introduce a contest that gets people excited and gets buzz going. And make it easy. Make it ridiculously simple to use. I'm going to walk you through a case study of a customer of ours, and they sold products that were basically a commodity. In Q1 2018, they sold 645 units, 129 reps were selling it. And they had a total revenue of $8,400,000. So with our customer, we came up with a unique incentive to introduce an incentive to sales management, as well as the salespeople. Now, the challenge we had here, it was a commodity, and all of their competitors were running incentive programs. So we really had to be different. We had to change the game. After Q3 2019, and by the way, this program wasn't supposed to go this long, but with such great success, in Q3 2018, now this is not cumulative, this is just for Q3, they sold over 5,000 units. The number of channel reps increased by 10 times, and they had 157 partners. Now, they now drove $58 million in that quarter over the 8 million. Now, that's a great number, and everybody should be excited about that number, but the number of partner reps that are now selling the product means it's repeatable. If this is just fewer people running bigger deals, it's not as repeatable, but this is repeatable. So we saw 780% growth in changing the game, coming up with a new approach. So what was the impact? Well, this was our long tail. This was the impact. We not only got people who were selling the product to sell the product, but we got other people to sell the product. And this is what leads to double-digit growth. This is how you grow your channel and how you get people excited. So I'm going to go back to the Harvard Business Review. 4 responses to a slowdown. Prevention-focused companies. Companies that basically make defensive moves. Promotion-focused companies. Companies that invest more in offensive moves to provide an upside and benefits to their peers, more benefits than their peers do. Pragmatic companies. Companies that really kind of combine defensive and offensive moves. And progressive companies. Companies which go after optimal combination of defensive and offensive moves. The question is, what are you? Harvard Business Review concluded that companies with both sales growth and profits that grew 10% higher than those of their competitors had achieved breakaway performance. So why ChannelAssist? Well, we consistently grow our clients' indirect channel by double digits using a number of means, all leading to channel sales rep engagement, focusing on the people that talk to the customer. Without that focus, you have no idea where your message is going. We're saying focus on them as individuals and you will see results. So why are you on this call? Well, you're looking to find a way to have that game breaker that'll get you back into business as soon as possible. So what's ChannelAssist prepared to do? Well, no one's starting any form of projects right now. Certainly no projects that require money. So what we're prepared to do is we're prepared to postpone our down payment fee so that we can get started on our customers' projects right away. No money down. And then once the economy gets back on its feet, then we'll put together a payment schedule that will make sense for us and our client. But right now, you need to focus on this kind of project, and you can't be encumbered by people saying you can't spend money. So we're waiving the down payment. Now, 5 companies that excelled in the last recession, Domino's, Netflix, Lego, Groupon, or Amazon and Groupon, we've all heard of these companies. So if you go back to pre-2008, where were these companies? Well, why did they excel? They look for new opportunities. They help those in need, and they presented an alternative. That's what all of these companies did. Now, who are people in need? Well, people that aren't making any money right now. That's, in your case, salespeople. Salespeople that are struggling to make their bill payments. They need help to get back on track. What's the opportunity? Well, right now, we're at ground zero. Look at this as a reset. Think about all the companies that have gone through change, economic change, as we talked about at the beginning of the presentation. Think of this as a reset. and which companies thought of it as a reset and didn't. You still have to go through your cost-cutting measures, I get it. But you need to also focus on the opportunity around the corner. Present an alternative. Think outside of the box. We're great at thinking outside of the box. If I was to go through the number of promotions that we went through that got people excited that they hadn't heard of or seen before, you'd be astounded, and we'd be happy to share that with you down the road. So, will you join these companies? These are the companies that excelled out of the last economic recession that we suffered from. Heard of them? They dominate the market space today. Are you going to join them? So with that, that's the conclusion of the presentation. I'd like to thank you for your time. We'd like to take any questions, and I'm going to pass it over to Brooke for any questions that anybody has had.
Great, thank you, Richard. And I just want to reiterate, so there is a Q&A tab, so you can type in any question that you'll have for Richard. I will obviously state what the question is. As well, just to let everyone know that we will be sending out this recording of this presentation to you. So you'll be receiving that in email, a link in email form, and that should be coming out tomorrow as well. So at this point, I will open it up to questions. And Doug does have a question. This is the question. You focus on the last 3 economic recessions. Can you be more specific about your client's plan and how come out the other side stronger of economic downturns, and how they can come out stronger of this economic downturn?
Well, the key here is to make sure that the channel reps are prepared when it comes to leaving this economic downturn. So I took this training back in the 80s when I first got into sales, and it's failing to play, the front page of it said, failing to plan is planning to fail. And expecting to just be able to come out with a new product that everybody's going to buy, well, 1 in a million companies come out with that. So most of the companies in the world, 75% of all revenue is driven through the channel, according to the World Trade Organization. So everybody has to think about how they're going to drive their sales channel growth. Well, they can communicate with their direct sales force very easily. But the challenge is how are you going to get in front of all of these channel reps that are sitting at home right now, making some calls into their clients and planning for how they're going to get out of this downturn? If you're not a part of that conversation, then you're missing the boat. So how do you do it? Well, you have to get in front of them right away. You have to show them that they need to take sales training on your product as soon as possible so that they best understand how to position your product. And you want to make sure that your solution is a part of their overall product offering when they pitch to their clients. But you need to do that now. You sit down with us, and what we can do is help come up with a promotion that will identify the best way to train them and the best way to get in and out of their hands as quickly as possible so that they're engaged leaving this economic downturn. That will get you a good head start over and above your competition so that when the economic recession ends, when the pandemic ends, they're actively selling to their clients as opposed to starting to make cold calls.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Another question, how can I incorporate my channel teams in these strategies?
Well, it's key that no one understands your sales channel better than your account managers that deal with them on a day-to-day basis. So you don't want to do anything on an island. It's really important for them to give you feedback as to which partners to focus on, which channel reps to focus on. You may not want to focus on all of your channel reps. You may want to focus on a specific segment. Your channel team has a huge amount of insight as to which ones are the most open to working with your organization and which ones are the challenge. They can help you design specific programs that are going to focus on areas of strength versus areas of weakness. So for example, you could design a promotion that focuses on the channel reps that are already selling your product, what gets them to sell more. But then you can also focus another promotion on channel reps that are not selling your product. Your account managers can speak to those much more effectively than anybody else can. They can be a part of the overall solution, communication strategy, and execution strategy on a very detailed level that you can give them.
Okay, great. Another question here. I see this current downturn as an opportunity to come out well-positioned on the other side. how do I engage with ChannelAssist today? What is my starting point?
Well, the first thing you should do is reach out to one of our salespeople. They'd be able to sit down with you to better understand what your needs and requirements are. From there, what we do is we gain some organizational alignment around what the opportunity is for your organization. Following that, we would put together a business requirements documentation that would go through all of the details associated with what your needs are and what the needs of your channel are. On the outside of that, once we've completed a business requirements document, we would then assign an account manager to work with you and execute the plan going forward.
Okay, and a question regarding communication strategies. Which communication strategies do you find the most effective in communicating with reps?
That's a great question. Well, it varies dramatically. What works for your kids? What works for your neighbor's kids? I like to think of salespeople like children in the sense that they're open to all kinds of opportunity, but it takes different forms of communication to get their attention. What gets my attention may not get someone else's attention. So it's critical that you use all kinds of communication to better understand what's going to work in your marketplace, in your ecosystem. Going with a partner portal is great, but not everybody's interested in going to the portal all the time. What's in it for them? You need to use a variety of communications to get their attention. More than 50% of all salespeople are millennials, and social media works more effective for them. But is it LinkedIn? Is it Instagram? Is it Twitter? These are all areas that you have to get a feel for. There's no one silver bullet to solve this. I think that you have to work with professionals that can help you identify what's going to be most effective for you and your partner ecosystem.
Again, have a great afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you, and stay safe.